Hey everybody! Today we'll be learning how to multiply mixed fractions. Before we get started, it would be helpful if you had a pencil, some scratch paper, an eraser, and a partner to help you during partner talk. Don't forget that you can always go back to the video and pause and review things that you may not have understood. So let's get started with this question. How can improper fractions help us when we're multiplying fractions? You can turn to somebody near you or you can write down your ideas and then come back when you're ready. Improper fractions are going to help us today because we'll be able to multiply straight across when we're multiplying mixed fractions. We wouldn't be able to do that if we just left the mixed fraction the way it was. So, for today's learning objective, we're learning how to multiply mixed fractions. We'll come back to that improper fraction skill in a couple of minutes. As we start, I want you to self-reflect. How do you feel about today's learning objective? Are you at a 4, 3, 2, or 1 for your level of understanding? Go ahead and write that down. Let's review a couple things before we get started. When you're multiplying fractions, you can also use a model to help you understand what the product would be. In this case, my model is made up of the denominators, and I shaded the model appropriately according to the numerators. That helps me understand what the product would be when I'm multiplying these two fractions together. There's also two ways to multiply fractions when you're multiplying straight across. You can first multiply the numerators and the denominators, and then you can simplify, like in that first example. You can also simplify first the numerators and the denominators, and then you can multiply across. These two strategies will be helpful today when we're multiplying fractions. You can also multiply the numerators straight across and write your fractions like this, and then simplify in the end. Our big idea for today is to understand that when we multiply mixed fractions or mixed numbers, we have to write the mixed number as an improper fraction. To do that, we multiply our whole number by the denominator, which would be 15 in this case, and then we add the numerator. 15 plus 2 is 17, and then I keep my same denominator. So this skill of changing the mixed fraction to an improper fraction will be really important as we go through today's lesson. Some success criteria that are skills that we've learned in the past that will help us with today's new skill. We can represent fractions with models. We can use models to multiply whole numbers and fractions. We can use models to multiply just fractions. We can multiply fractions straight across, and we can change mixed fractions to improper fractions. So let's get started with our first model. The first thing I need to do is change this mixed fraction to an improper fraction. Well, 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4. I keep the same denominator, times 2/3. 2/3 is not a mixed fraction, so I can just keep it the same. 4 times 2 is 8. 3 times 3 is 9. Now I have 8/9. 8/9 cannot be simplified, and that is my answer. So for today's lesson, our steps are as follows. We change the mixed fraction to an improper fraction, multiply across, and simplify if needed. I do have this little note here at the top that says if you want to simplify before multiplying across, you can. Let's try one more example. 2.5 times 4 1/5. So let's change 2.5 to an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 is 5. Keep the same denominator. 4 times 5 is 20, plus 1 is 21. Keep the same denominator. Now I multiply straight across. But if I look, I could actually simplify first. 5 and 5 can go into one another, which is 1 time. When I multiply across now, I get 21, because 1 times 21 is 21, and then 2 times 1 is 2. So I have 21 over 2, which is an improper fraction that I need to simplify. So I simplify it by asking myself, how many times can 2 go into 21? It can go in 10 times, because 10 times 2 is 20. 21 minus 20 is 1. So that becomes my new numerator, and I keep the same denominator. So my answer is 10.5. All right, let's try some together. If you want to pause and do them on your own, you can, or you can stick with me and we can do them together. 2 4/5 times 6 1/8. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 4 is 14. 14 fifths times 6 times 8 is 48. 48 plus 1 is 49 eighths. So I think I can simplify here before I get started. Let's see, 14 can go into 2 7 times, and 8 can go into 2 4 times. When I multiply across now, I'll have 7 times 49, and then 5 times 4. 5 times 4 I know is 20, but I'm going to come up here and multiply 49 times 7. 9 times 7 is 63. 4 times 7 is 28. 28 plus 6 is 34. So I have 343 twentieths. But I need to simplify that. That's a really big improper fraction. So how many times can 20 go into 343? I know that 20 times 10 is 200, so I need to go a little bit above that. I'm going to try 20 times 15. Well, I know that 2 times 15 is 30, so that would actually give me 300. So I'm going to try 20 times 17. And I know that 2 times 17 is 34, and I bring down my 0. So that gives me 340, which is really close to 343. So I know it can go in 17 times. 343 minus 340 is 3. That becomes my new numerator, and my denominator is 20. So 3/20ths can't be simplified, so my answer is 17 and 3/20ths. Before we move on, let's do some partner talk about this problem. I'll choose the sentence frame. I can solve this by changing the mixed fractions to improper fractions and then multiplying across. I can check my work by simplifying first and then try solving it without simplifying to see if I get the same answer. Okay, let's try this one. Again, you can pause and try it on your own, or you can stick with me too. Let's change these into improper fractions. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 1 is 4, which gives me 4 thirds, times 3 times 3 is 9, plus 2 is 11, 11 thirds. I can't simplify anything before I get started, so I multiply straight across. 4 times 11 is 44. 3 times 3 is 9. Now I need to simplify this improper fraction. 9 can go into 44. Let's see, 4 times 9 is 36. 9 times 5 is 45. So it's going to go in 4 times. Now I can subtract 44 and 36. There's more on the floor, so I can go next door. This becomes a 14. 14 minus 6 is 8, which becomes my new numerator. Keep the same denominator, and I can't simplify 8/9, so my answer is 4 and 8/9. So let's do some partner talk. I found the answer by changing these mixed numbers, mixed fractions, into improper fractions, multiplying across, and then simplifying. All right, let's try this next one. Let's change these into improper fractions. 2 times 5 is 10, plus 3 is 13. Keep the same denominator. 3 times 8 is 24. 24 plus 7 is 31. Keep the same denominator. It looks like I can't simplify anything going across here, so I need to just multiply. 13 times 31, I'll come over here and multiply. 3 times 1 is 3, 1 times 1 is 1, put my 0 down. 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 1 is 3, and then I can add these together. 3, 10, carry the 1. So I have 403 as this giant numerator. 5 times 8 is 40. So I asked myself, how many times can 40 go into 403? I'm going to change my color here so it's a little bit easier to see. Well, I know that 10 times 4 is 400. which is really close to 403. So I can say it goes in 10 times. 403 minus 400 gives me 3. And I keep the same denominator, which is 40, and that cannot be simplified. So my answer is 10 and 3/40. Let's talk about this problem. I can say that I can make a parallel connection to multiplying regular fractions, because since I changed my mixed fraction to an improper fraction, I'm just multiplying straight across. Now let's try this word problem. Lola bought 1 2/3 pounds of grapes. She also bought bananas that were 2 1/4 times the weight of the grapes. How much did the bananas weigh? So let me circle these first. 1 2/3, 2 1/4, and we want to figure out how much did the bananas weigh. And our action keyword is times. So if the grapes were 1 2/3 and the bananas were 2 1/4 that weight, I would just multiply those together. Change these into improper fractions. 1 times 3 is 3, plus 2 is 5, so I have 5/3, times 2 times 4 is 8, plus 1 is 9, so I have 9/4. It looks like I can simplify these guys. 3 can go into 3 one time, can go into 9 3 times. 5 times 3 is 15. 1 times 4 is 4. Change this fraction here into a mixed number. 4 can go into 15 3 times, because 4 times 3 is 12. 4 wouldn't work because 4 times 4 is 16. 15 minus 12 is 3, and keep the same denominator. So it looks like the bananas were 3 3/4 pounds. Let's talk about this one. It is important to know this skill because we can actually use it in real life situations when we're cooking, when we're trying to figure out doing projects around the house, and we're looking at measurements that are fractions, and when we need to multiply to find out certain things that we're doing around the house. So what was our learning objective for today? We're learning how to multiply mixed fractions. How are you feeling about today's lesson? Are you at a 4, 3, 2, or 1? How is multiplying mixed fractions or mixed numbers different from just multiplying fractions? Well, the answer to this would be that we need to change those mixed fractions into improper fractions first. We can't just multiply straight across and multiply the numbers. It just wouldn't work that way. So that would be one of the major differences. Use what you know about area to solve this problem. So how would we solve this? If we know the area is length times width, then we would just multiply 1 1/2 times 2 3/4. So I can write that out here. And then I would need to change these two fractions into improper fractions. 1 times 2 is 2, 2 plus 1 is 3, times 2 times 4 is 8, 8 plus 3 is 11. I can't cross anything out here. So 3 times 11 is 33. I'm just going to write it up here where I have more room. 2 times 4 is 8. How many times can 8 go into 33? It can go in 4 times because 8 times 4 is 32. 33 minus 32 is 1. So my answer is 4 1/8 inches squared because I'm finding the area. All right. Well, thank you so much for following along and learning how to multiply mixed fractions. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more direct instruction lessons. Thank you so much.